Tonight, advanced polling opens across the province. A Saskatoon nurse returns home after 6 weeks in Gaza and shares her experience. 2 Saskatchewan breweries collaborate to win Best Beer.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, October 22nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. The province's independent conflict of interest commissioner says an outgoing Saskatchewan Party MLA broke the rules. Gary Greywall was found violating conflict rules related to his stake in 2 Regina motels. Those motels were paid by government to house social services clients. Adam Hunter has the details.
Saskatchewan's Conflict of Interest Commissioner Maurice Haroff says outgoing Saskatchewan Party MLA Gary Greywall did not comply with rules that govern elected members. Greywall is the owner of the Sunrise Motel in Regina and has an interest in the Thrift Lodge Motel because he's a creditor. Both businesses have housed social services clients. Haroff found Greywall was not aware of the existence of those government contracts until December of 2023. He was given 90 days to comply with the act. While Greywall informed his wife, who ran the Sunrise Motel, to stop taking clients, it was still being paid by the government well after the 90-day period. Haroff says no action was taken with the Thrift Lodge Motel. NDP leader Carla Beck says not only was the motel accepting the government's money, both were charging more than the normal rates.
No one in this province thinks that it's okay for a member of the Legislative Assembly to benefit by jacking up rates for social assistance clients in his own motel. I don't think that's a gray area for people in this province. Wrong is wrong.
The NDP first raised the potential conflict back in 2023. Records show that both motels had very little business with the government prior to 2020. But that changed after Gary Greywall was elected in 2020. Nearly $750,000 was paid from the government to those motels. Sask Party leader Scott Moe had this to say when asked about the decision of the commissioner.
We accept the findings. There's no recommendations that are made. This is an individual that's a private citizen now, is not running for our party, so we would accept them.
Greywall announced earlier this year that he would not be seeking re-election. As for a punishment, Haroff didn't hand one down. He says that decision will be left up to elected members. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
The advanced polls are officially open, kicking off voting week in Saskatchewan's 30th general election. More than 300 advanced polling stations across the province are now open. Until Saturday, you can cast your ballot early from 10 in the morning until 7 at night. There will be no voting on Sunday, but another 400 plus voting locations will be open Election Day Monday. Polls will be open an hour earlier and later that day from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. You can find the location closest to you on the voter card you should have received in the mail or by visiting the Election Saskatchewan website. More than 32,000 people registered to vote by mail, and that is down from the roughly 56,000 in the last election. Campaigning continued all over the province today. Alexander Kwan brings us the latest from the trail.
6 days to go until polls close in Saskatchewan and the next government will be formed. Leaders will spend the next few days in key ridings. Tuesday, Saskatchewan Party leader Scott Moe was in Prince Albert, repeating plans for improving affordability and a strong economy. Moe even got philosophical about our right to vote as he encouraged his supporters to head to the polls.
We are so fortunate to live in a place, Canada and a province like Saskatchewan, where we get to freely choose our government each and every 4 years. And we will be reminded of this privilege this past June as we celebrated 80 years since D-Day.
Moe once again issued a warning, saying vote splitting is a quick way to let the NDP form government. There are 3 other Conservative parties running candidates in this election. NDP leader Carla Beck was in Moose Jaw Tuesday. She focused on messages about education, affordability, and healthcare.
We'll hire more teachers, education workers, and ensure that every child in this province has the attention, has the support that they need.
Beck will end her day in Regina speaking to healthcare workers later tonight. Also making news on the campaign trail Tuesday was an incident of vandalism at a campaign office. Sask party candidate for Regina Northeast, Rohul Singh, says volunteers found 2 holes in the windows of his office. He says they don't know when the holes appeared.
I'm not here to blame anybody. That's not what we want to do. And all I want to say is we're still focused on our campaign. We're still knocking doors. We're going to keep doing it.
Sask party leader Scott Moe went as far as to claim the holes were gunshots fired at the building. But Regina police say their investigation found the damage was not from a gun. But police are still investigating. Polls close on October 28th at 8 p.m. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Healthcare, education, taxes, these issues dominate provincial election campaigns right across the country. But here in Saskatchewan, one issue we have not heard much about, Saskatchewan's rapidly growing debt. As Jason Warwick reports, some experts say it can't continue.
Back in 2015, selfie sticks were a thing. So were man buns. And Taylor Swift was just starting to dominate the pop music charts. Also in 2015, Saskatchewan's public debt was only $5 billion. Fast forward to today, and man buns and selfie sticks are out. Taylor Swift is bigger than ever, but so is Saskatchewan's debt. The province's general debt has more than tripled over the past decade, from $5.4 billion in 2015 to nearly $20 billion this year. That's an increase of more than 350%. Still, neither of the major parties is talking much about debt, so CBC News asked them about it.
Plan 1 is to ensure that we have a long-term plan to keep the budget balanced on behalf of the people in Saskatchewan. We want to ensure we're continuing to grow the economy and invest in hospitals and schools and the people that are offering those services. But we always need to be focused on ensuring that that debt is manageable over time, and when we can, decreasing it.
We need to get the economy firing on all cylinders. Again, this government is presiding over a record of economic loss in 7 key sectors of the economy. We need to ensure that we've got the economy thriving on all sectors.
Both parties are planning deficit budgets for the next 3 years. One expert says that's not good because that means more debt and more interest payments for taxpayers.
Well, it's really unfortunate to not hear the party leaders focus on it more. You know, one of the most important things the government can do is balance the budget and start to pay down debt, because that means that the government is going to be on the hook for less and less money that's going to be wasted in debt interest payments. Every single dollar the government adds in debt has to be paid back plus interest, and that's costing Saskatchewan taxpayers a lot of money this year.
Hobrick says the average family of 4 is paying more than $2,000 a year of taxes just to make the province's interest payments. He says that money could have hired 7,000 nurses or police officers. Another political watcher says most of the provincial debt has been accumulated by the Saskatchewan Party and the progressive conservative governments of the 80s. Tom McIntosh says he's surprised the NDP isn't trying to make more of an issue of this.
I'm maybe not surprised that the Sask Party doesn't want to talk about it, because the overall provincial debt has increased significantly in the last 17 years, and not all of that can be blamed on the pandemic.
McIntosh and Hobrick say that no matter who forms the next government, they cannot continue to pile up debt like they have for the past 10 years. And to quote Taylor Swift, they can't just shake it off, or their balance sheet will have a big blank space. And that will create bad blood with taxpayers. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
When you look at good debt versus bad debt in the province, a University of Regina economist, Jason Child, says you can, for the most part, compare it to your own personal finances.
For the most part, yes. The basic mechanics are the same. The only difference is hopefully governments don't die. In terms of, I hope there's still a Saskatchewan government 50 years from now. I don't expect to be around that long. But at the same time, somebody's going to have to carry it, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. So you can deal with debt not being repaid, but you still have to service it. That's the big distinction for the provincial level. When you move up to the federal level, you get to play another game, and that's like, oh, I can just print the money to pay for it. And that creates its own kind of mess.
To hear more from Jason Childs and about the conversation about provincial debt and finances on today's episode of Blue Sky on CBC Radio, head over to our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. While the leaves might still be changing in many parts of the country this week, Calgarians are getting their first preview of winter. Yesterday, Calgary received its first snow of the year. Nothing too intense yet, but definitely a sign for more to come. And Peter Cottontail here, none too impressed about the snow that fell in Regina today. I mean, it did have to happen sooner or later, but it didn't really accumulate or anything. But that said, some areas did see accumulation in the province. So is this gloomy weather the new normal, or will the warm weather come back? Ethan will have the forecast for you after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A Saskatoon nurse is home after a 6-week stint working in southern Gaza in a medical center. She says it changed her outlook on hardship. She was there with Doctors Without Borders and shared with the CBC the resilience she saw.
On one hand, I feel relieved, obviously, to be out of a war zone safe and sound. I'm incredibly lucky. And on another hand, I feel extremely guilty and like I'm missing my coworkers and friends that I left in Palestine. There's a huge need for not only aid workers, but any healthcare staff in general in Gaza right now. And because the humanitarian organizations are keeping the missions a bit short because they're very intense, they have a lot of turnover of staff. And so I knew they needed people, and I decided that it was good to go. To be honest, I think in any humanitarian work, the biggest part of what we do is bearing witness and living with the people that are there, going through whatever the event is and suffering. I think just being there with them and saying that I see you and I'm here with you, and the world is with you, I think is bigger than anything I could bring medically or clinically. I was working at Nasser Medical Complex, and so I worked primarily with inpatient pediatrics, NICU, PICU, and pediatric emergency. At times extremely heart-wrenching, but you saw a lot of resilience for sure. I was really struck, of course, by the amount of resilience that the patients and the families had, as well as the Palestinian staff that I got to work with. Of course, it is extremely hard to see children suffering and dying in a context where they shouldn't have to. There were a lot of infectious diseases and skin diseases because of the hygiene conditions that were a result of the people being displaced. Of course, all the people of Gaza, most of the people of Gaza are displaced from the north to the south and are living in encampments, so tents on the sand. And so infectious diseases and skin diseases run rampant. Even if you, like as hard as you can possibly try to maintain hygiene conditions, it's nearly impossible because even in the market, it's extremely hard to find hygiene supplies like soap and shampoo. I remember speaking with a pediatrician I was working with, and his own children, he was having trouble preventing them from getting skin diseases because of the lack of supplies in the market. So we saw a lot of infectious diseases like that and respiratory illnesses where the burden of care was higher because of the war conditions. And we also saw a lot of malnutrition. Almost all of the buildings are destroyed, or at least partially destroyed. The hospital I was working in had been evacuated and had been invaded by the IDF prior to our work there. And after the ground invasion had finished and they had left, the IDF had left, the staff could come back and restart care at the hospital. And so they did a lot of rehabilitation work on the hospital, including Doctors Without Borders helped rehabilitate the hospital. It didn't feel like a normal hospital, but on the day-to-day, there was still a lot of laughter, actually, and positivity. And I learned a lot about how to maintain that kind of attitude in the worst of circumstances. There was bombs around all the time, very close. You definitely wonder at times, but I was more fearful for the Palestinian staff that I was working with, to be honest. In theory, MSF, Doctors Without Borders, is a deconflicted NGO, and so all of our structures are deconflicted, meaning that they're supposed to not be bombed, but the encampments where the staff that I was working with live are not deconflicted. And so they were at a much greater risk than I was. And so I was worried for their safety, much more than my own, but I'd love to go back, certainly.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Our greatest auto sale is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. You hear stories like that, and it makes complaining about a little bit of snow in the weather seem pretty darn trivial.
Yeah, sure does. And, we'll definitely take our weather and our situation over that for sure. But today, a lot of us across the province noticing that we are starting to drop a little further into fall-like weather. And yes, even a little bit like winter at times with a little bit of snow falling. That snow has moved out now, but the cooler temperatures are sticking around, and this is as good as we got today through south and central Saskatchewan. Some of us in west central areas that normally are quite, the warmer part of the province, barely getting above the freezing mark at times. Now, that having been said, some of us yesterday hit the 20-degree mark, and that has continued this trend this October of seeing above average the number of 20-degree days that we get in the month. We've been quite spoiled this October, especially south central and southwestern Saskatchewan, almost triple the number of 20-degree days that we normally see in October. And I think warmer weather is going to be on the way once again. Will we hit 20 degrees? Well, I'm not so sure about that, but a little bit of a ridge developing in the jet stream here means that the temperatures will be picking up pretty quickly over these next few days. Now, the snow, as I mentioned, gone for the most part. High pressure late this afternoon, kind of trying to clear things out in western parts of the province, but that cloud cover is doing a pretty good job of hanging on. Although I think as we get into tomorrow, that ridge of high pressure clears a lot of us out, especially through tomorrow morning through south and central. A little bit of some snow hanging around far northern Saskatchewan, but that should clear through the afternoon as well. Tomorrow afternoon, a little bit of some cloud here and there. This is mostly just high cloud cover, I think, through the southern half of the province, and we're not really going to be seeing a whole lot of it stick around all that much. Some accumulation expected early Thursday morning with our next little system moving through. As some flurries move through the far north, that might translate into a few rain showers for Thursday afternoon in parts of south and central, but otherwise we'll be staying mostly clear before high pressure moves in again by the time we get to Friday and for the weekend. Now, it will be a little bit breezy at times still over these next couple of days here, but you notice the wind direction kind of coming from the south and west, so that's allowing that warmer air to come in after more northerly flow to our wind over these past couple of days, and that looks like it sticks around for a day or two here. And that means that tomorrow, yes, we'll get back up to even above seasonal in Regina, although the overnight lows next few nights here I think will still fall below the freezing mark. A little bit breezy on Thursday, may add a chance of showers for Regina into that forecast when we get to tomorrow. But then look at the temperatures bumping up right in time for our last regular season rider game on Saturday. For Saskatoon, we're looking at some breezy conditions again tomorrow, I think, but again, southerly flow to the wind. And then even though we see some single-digit temperatures, that's about seasonal before we jump up into the teens again, Sam, as we head into the weekend.
Which you will fully take credit for.
Well, I sure will, yes.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
We have an inflatable pumpkin black road. I'll be out.
Oh, you don't see that every day. Halloween decorations seem to get bigger and bigger every year, which is no big deal, as long as they don't get away. Police in Ohio were called to the scene of a fugitive pumpkin. It broke free and rolled onto a busy road. The inflatable giant, 350 pounds, so not an easy thing to move. Police say it was returned to its owner without incident and that, quote, no officers or pumpkins were harmed during the operation. True story. We'll be back after the break. There is not much LeBron James has not done on a basketball court.
LeBron James was in his second NBA training camp when his son was born.
Yeah, it's such a great story. I mean, and that
And tonight, he is expected to make NBA history again when he takes the court with his son. James and his son Bronny are set to become the first father-son duo ever to play a game together in the NBA. James, the NBA's all-time leading scorer, is entering his 22nd season in the league, his 7th with the LA Lakers. 20-year-old Bronny James was chosen by the Lakers in the second round of this year's draft. The Lakers are hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves for their season opener. I think you should bring your dad to work one day, Ethan.
I think I'm going to name my kid Bronny. What a name. That's amazing. Or maybe something to go with mine. Anyway, slam dunk forecast for you in Regina tomorrow. We wake up to 2 degrees under sunny skies. That'll feel just below freezing perhaps, and then getting up to 10 degrees already by the noon hour. Yeah, a little bit breezy, but under mostly sunny skies. That sun will be back for us in Regina and for Saskatoon as well. We'll be starting under mostly sunny conditions tomorrow at a degree, and then again already jumping up to around 8 by the noon hour. Again, some breezes here and there, but I think into the afternoon things will be pretty nice. And it has been gorgeous with the full moon the other night as well. The Hunter's moon, the super moon, was out, and Nova captured the beautiful rainbow rings around the sky as well. Beautiful shot out there near Rowan's Ravine, Sam.
But what does it mean?
Yes.
Double rainbow? No. Okay.
Yeah, Halloween. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we go, a collaboration between 2 Saskatchewan breweries has won Best in Show at the Canada Beer Cup. The winning beer is called Quark, and it was created in partnership between Nokomis Craft Ales and Pile o' Bones Brewing Company. It's a Belgian blonde beer featuring barley, wheat, oats, coriander, and sweet orange peel. The Canada Beer Cup is a national competition among independently owned and operated breweries across Canada. It's judged by the top international beer judges in the world. Pile o' Bones and Nokomis merged their business last year, but they've kept brewing operations independent. And that is it for us tonight. For more on the provincial election campaign, head to cbc.ca/Sask. Election Day is less than a week from today on the 28th. We invite you to join us here afterwards. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.